Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We have one series at 2-2, another at 2-1. The interesting, very competitive Western and Eastern Conference Finals. We'll talk about both and some other stuff, but we'll start as usual with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So let's talk about the Negro Leagues being included in Major League stats. I think it's great. I'll tell you, when we started Sportsology, myself and Doug Cataldo and a guy named Dean Moore, we all were big fans of talking to as many Negro League players as we could. And, I got close to one, Ernest Burke, who was out of like Harvard Grass, and I didn't realize he actually has a statue there. So one day I'm going to go see it, but he gave me an autographed card, and we had him on 2 or 3 times in our early days. And then when we were in Chicago, we had a pitcher named Ernest Westfield on. And this is how I learned. I didn't worry about what the scoring was. I used to just ask him about the players. Hey, what about Satchel Paige? What about this? How close were you guys to major leaguers? What was your games like? And honestly, it really was. I mean, they were playing the same game. They were playing in pro ballparks. Everything really was the same. And so, that's when I started to realize, what they're doing now is the right thing, because now all of these guys who play in the Negro Leagues will be counted, among like everyday players in major leagues. And in the end, they all had the same lives, except the Negro League players, it was harder on them. But they all lived the baseball life the same way.
They did. And to a point, I don't have a problem with it, but the argument that it's the same as the major leagues, I don't agree with. I mean, the thing is, it's an argument you'll never know, because you could say, well, Babe Ruth didn't face Satchel Paige or didn't face any of the Negro League pitchers.
It might have been a barnstorming, but it was out of season.
They did, but I'm saying in regular. I mean, barnstorming didn't count in terms of major league stats. I'm talking about major league seasons.
I know, but that's the only way they would have faced each other, is what I'm
right. They would have faced each other, and there's documented situations where they faced each other and somebody struck out somebody, and this guy hit the home run 500 feet. I just don't know if it's something where they're actually equal in terms of the quality of the game. I mean, I heard Buck O'Neill on the Ken Burns baseball series, talk about Satchel Paige or Josh Gibson or Cool Papa Bell or a few other players. And
I can tell you, like Gibson, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're hitting homers, you're hitting homers.
Right.
Maybe the pitching may not be fully matchable from your top starter to your bottom starter, but if you're hitting them over the wall, you're hitting them over the wall. And Cool Papa Bell, like stealing bases, you're going to steal bases regardless. You know what and I'll let you finish. You know what I go back to? Remember, Roy Campanella was one of the better Negro League catchers. Then he came to Major League Baseball, and he was gunning everybody down too. So
Jackie Robinson was a young whippersnapper in the Negro Leagues, hadn't even established himself, and then jumps in. I mean, I think Mays played in the Negro Leagues.
Aaron played, but he was batting cross-handed. He didn't even know how to bat.
Right.
He was so young, and I think Mays may have played a game or two. Maybe
and Larry Doby as well. I'm just saying, I don't think that that's the thing. I don't think that the leagues are equal. I don't have a problem with them sort of commingling the stats. I also get the feeling, and I hope that this is not the case, and that this is, if this is being done as a final acknowledgement of the Negro Leagues as a quality league and as an equal to the major leagues, fine. If this is being done as some sort of woke I put nothing past Rob Manfred. That's why I'm bringing that up.
I understand your hesitancy there, but I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I'm going to see how this is sold or couched. If it's, if this is just they're just laying it out there and this is what's going to happen and that's it. That's fine.
Here's an example, and this is something that's really key. Negro League fans, and I got to go grab something my dog stole. 3 million fans were at the ballpark in 1942.
Okay. while Russ retrieves his homework from his dog. We'll just
No,
say
it was yogurt. My dog was stealing yogurt.
Jesus. His dog is lactose intolerant and got a hold of the yogurt.
He
Okay.
needed probiotics. But they drew 3 million people. Like,
Yeah,
that's a lot
I
back
know.
for any era. So, So, Mike, I have a surprise for you.
Okay. Grape Tang.
There's a new flavor of Tang. Remember how I always told you that in Canada, they always seem to try out stuff, and then if it works, they send it here?
Yeah.
Grape Raisin Tang.
No, that's the same thing that Randy had.
Oh, I didn't think it was raisin. I didn't think it had raisin.
Well, yeah, it said raisin underneath.
Oh, it did. Okay.
Raisins are basically
crystals. It's not the thing that Randy had.
No, but obviously raisins are just shriveled grapes. So yeah, it's pretty much the same flavor. No, I mean, I've done an extensive search and have not been able to find something that I didn't have to buy from like Guatemala.
Is it not duty free when you go and get your ginger ale? It's not there.
I believe me, I've looked at the various supermarkets in the Fort Erie, St. Catharines area, and the only Tang that they have is orange. So,
they have Jamaica Tang. What is that?
It's flavored like marijuana.
Jamaica Tang. We'll stay away from that.
Yeah. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, May 29th, 2024.
I'm Russ Cohen from NHLDraftBuzz.com and Sportsology.
And I'm not Bob Marley. I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, let's start with the game last night. Very similar to Game 3 of the Florida Rangers series, where I think Florida dominated the second half of the game. The only reason that the Rangers kept it close and then eventually tied the game was because of Shesterkin. I think it's overstepping it a bit that I saw, I think it was Pierre LeBrun and a few others saying, well, it was poetic or it was justice that the Panthers won the game. That's horseshit. It's like whoever wins the game wins the game. So, were they the better of the two teams? Yes.
Yeah, they were the better in the last two games, but that's not always
right.
That doesn't always mean that team wins. They still got to win.
Right. So the Panthers win 3-2 on a Sam Reinhart power play goal in overtime, and I have to say the penalty was justified. I mean, Blake Wheeler was essentially water skiing. Was it Verhaeghe or was it Barca? I can't remember who it was that was breaking in. But whoever it was would have had I think it was Barkov, and somebody in the chat will probably tell me.
Yeah.
But Wheeler was grabbing on for dear life. And when there's a breakaway in overtime, I think you're probably justified in doing that.
Yeah, because you figure Shesterkin has stopped a lot of power plays before. We talked about the power play percentage he has of .936, but again on this night, that shot was perfect that went in on him, and that's Reinhart. He's going to get the biggest contract in the offseason.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that in a second, but I think it's got to be a concern of the Rangers, in spite of the fact that Sean McDonough on the broadcast. Well, the Rangers' penalty killing has been fantastic. They've given up 3 power play goals in the last 2 games, so it hasn't been fantastic.
No.
Now you could say that the Florida power play has been good, but at this time of the year, you need your PK to come up big, and their PK has not come up big. 3 Reinhart power play goals in the last 2 games. The 2 in Game 3, which led to them. They were down 4-2. They came back, tied the game, and then lost on the Wenberg goal last night. Shesterkin holds them in. Lafreniere ties the game in the third period, and then Reinhart scores in overtime. So it's, based on the fact that the Rangers were outplayed in both games, them going back to MSG tied 2-2 is fortunate. Yeah,
no, it's fortunate, and it's probably not how they had it written up, but I'm sure they knew that this would be most likely be the case. This is just one where I feel like Florida, they need to win the next one as well, because you don't want it to be Game 7 at MSG. I mean, that's a tough spot. Doesn't mean they can't do it, but it's a tough spot. So, and Florida, honestly, they played their game better. The Rangers are still that team, though, that if you don't get 3 goals up on them, they're always lurking. They have guys that can score. If they all of a sudden, Florida, biggest thing for Florida is they need to stay out of the penalty box. The Rangers' power play can be deadly at times, and that's how the Rangers are going to win this series if Florida just takes too many dumb penalties. That's really a big factor here because their power play is so good at times.
Well, the Rangers' first power play was fantastic. The Tkachuk goal, which Bobrovsky had no chance. It was a quick passing play off of a face-off. It was a great goal. But then, they went 1 for 3. They're not getting as many opportunities as the Panthers. And I think that's unjustified because I do think the Panthers have been taking liberties. I mean, yesterday.
They're the dirtiest team other than the Bruins.
God, they're pathetic. But the thing is, you can be dirty. See, this is the thing. When you're consistently dirty, you get away with more because everybody expects you to be dirty. So, when Nick Cousins and Bennett, somebody honestly, and I say this with all due respect, somebody needs to basically trip Sam Bennett at full speed to send him a message that, because he runs guys at full speed, hits that border on being illegal.
He looks like a linebacker now.
Yeah, it's right. He actually looks like he looks like a Viking with that beard. I think he's been growing that beard since January. But he's just would you want to have that guy on your team? Yes, but he's dirty as hell. So, I think the Rangers are fortunate to be going back to MSG tied 2-2. I agree they need to win Game 5. If they win Game 5, I still think it's going 7. I'm pretty sure I predicted the Rangers in 7.
Yeah, you did.
So. Now,
actually, one thing though about Matthew Tkachuk, we keep seeing that stat, and it popped up again yesterday that scoring chance wise, 56 to 7 or something. I think it moved up a little bit in the Rangers' favor, but not much. But that's a guy who I think if I'm a Ranger fan, not the Rangers, that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about Matthew Tkachuk all of a sudden getting hot.
Yeah.
He had a 2-point game on Sunday. He did get an assist yesterday, but he's a guy that could, and he doesn't have a goal. He hasn't had a goal since the first game. So
Timothy,
you do worry about him a little bit.
I have to bring this up. Timothy, if you're talking about Bennett's punch to the face, it was not clean. If you're talking about a hit, I don't know what hit you're talking about, but he cold-cocked Marchand. Now, you could say Marchand deserved it because he's Marchand, but he punched him.
Okay.
And he got,
Well, let's just talk about this series. So you agree that Tkachuk has not been a huge factor lately?
No.
And so all of a sudden he kicks in. Now, conversely, you could say the same thing about Panarin and Kreider and Zibanejad. Sure. But I think we all acknowledge that to start this series, the Panthers had the better defense. I forget something else. My dog stalled.
No. I was going to say the Rangers' issue right now is they've been doing this basically on the back of Shesterkin playing fantastic, getting unexpected offense from Barclay Goodrow, and Lafreniere playing like a lot of people thought he was going to be able to play when he was picked first overall. Their best forward has been Trocheck, which nobody expected. And guys like Panarin and Kreider and Zibanejad have been no-shows through 4 games. So I agree that if Tkachuk shows up, that's definitely a plus for Florida. But the Rangers have 3 guys who haven't shown up, and I seriously doubt that all 3 of them are playing hurt. Everybody's playing hurt, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't think they're being – I don't get
the feeling they're hurt. I don't want to make that excuse for everybody. I agree with you.
Yeah. Now, How did you think Blake Wheeler played? Because in the limited amount of time that he played, I thought he was okay, but
He was okay, but
they really spoon fed him.
yeah, I think he was okay, but I also think knowing what his speed used to be, he could have probably, if he was playing other games, more games, maybe would have made a better play on that puck, even though it was been the Jets' fault on
Right.
that penalty. So I feel like he's 60% what we knew of Blake Wheeler.
Yeah, and I thought in his limited amount of time, Rempe played. Actually, Rempe had a really good scoring chance. I think it was in the second period that Bobrovsky stopped. So, I mean, like I said, very entertaining series. I'm looking forward to Game 5. I wonder whether on the road, because you had Maurice sub out Cousins and Lomberg for Opozo and for Steven Lorenz. And I'm wondering, maybe those guys were worn out a little bit because they've been running ragged, running people into the wall. That's Cousins and Lomberg's game. So maybe they come back on the road in Game 5 with their experience. But I wonder whether there'll be any changes in the Rangers lineup, whether Brodzinski gets back in, whether I don't think Gustafsson has played very well, but they seem to love what he's doing. Well, whether there'll be any other changes.
Gustafsson's been men's amends. I think they made the right idea getting Hedel out of the lineup. Now they have to decide whether they really want Wheeler or Brodzinski. Believe it or not, I think they might be better off with Brodzinski because he plays a certain role. He's faster at this point in his career. He's good at just keeping the puck at times and keeping it away from the other team just for some energy. I didn't feel energy from Blake Wheeler. So I just feel like you might want to give that kid a shot because they're pretty hungry. The Brzezinski brothers, because one of them's in Philly, or was in Philly, they're pretty hungry. They're pretty smart. They're just, guys that aren't bad to throw in there for short spurts. So I feel like that's probably a move they can make. They're probably not going to do anything else. But that's probably a move they could do.
I mentioned this before the show. The last couple of days, there's been some sort of crazy Brady Tkachuk trade rumors that don't make a lot of sense. I mean, he signed to a long-term deal. The deal is not particularly bad in terms of, I think it's in the 8.1 or something like that million. I'm looking it up as we're talking, which for a player of his quality is a great deal. Let's see here.
It is a great deal.
8.2 with 4 years left on the contract, and he's 24 years old. So, if all of a sudden he said, well, I want to be traded, now he has a no move clause that kicks in after next season. Maybe that's when if you get closer to that and you're not competitive and he wants out, maybe that's a possibility, but I just can't see them moving him now with the new ownership taking over. Unless he's asking out, and they're, I know that like Pierre LeBrun and a couple other people have been saying these rumors make no sense. So
how many more years does he have on his deal?
He's got 4 more years on the contract. The last 3 have a no move clause that kicks in on July 1st, 2025. So he's entering the last year of the deal that has no move clause. So they'd be free to trade him anywhere over the next year, but he's still got 4 years left in the contract.
Right. So, I mean, there's always been something in the back of my head that says he's going to go to St. Louis.
Right.
And considering Matthews' contract's much longer term than even Brady's, right?
Yes.
With years left, I think Brady's the guy that's going to end up going there. So based on that, yeah, I think it wouldn't shock me if they start to talk with St. Louis at some point. Because Travis Green's they're going to have to make some decisions there on players, on contracts. Some, like, what are you doing with Chychrun? What?
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
they can't go into the final year of that deal. I mean, they either have to get him locked up long term or trade him. I can't.
To me, that's the start of those kinds of conversations,
right?
What and then after you know what you're doing with Chychrun, then what do you is Tkachuk really here to stay? Like that's what you have to decide.
You've got Stützle locked up long term. You've got Sanderson locked up long term. You have Shabbat locked up long term.
which
but
may or may not be a good thing. But yeah,
well, I mean, I mean, it's not. See, it's not prohibitive. I think he's making $8 million, which is
right.
Now that's not backbreaking.
No,
But I mean, with the cap going up, 8.2 for Brady Tkachuk, who scored 37 goals last year, is phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
That could be like the second best deal in the league next to Draisaitl.
Yeah,
So,
it could be.
Now you brought up some Sheldon Keefe stuff.
Yeah. So Matt Blittner, who writes for Sportsology, he was at the press conference in New Jersey. I'm going to get up some. It's going to take a second. I got to pull it off Twitter.
Okay.
But yeah, there were some key points that he brought up from that press conference, and it's not about the cupcakes. We went through personally in our own little offline thing. We went through like the cupcake war. I didn't realize how much of a war that would cause by me mentioning that the Devils made him cupcakes. But sure enough, it was contentious. All right, let's see.
I don't get the whole cupcake thing. So
you were a part of it. You do get it.
No, I don't get it.
How they made him for him.
I mean, okay, fine, but I mean, what does it say? It's like great. They make cupcakes. It's like the first of all, the Leafs are not a cheap organization, and
did they ever make them cupcakes?
Who gives a fuck? I mean, they're cupcakes. I'm just like, it's like, so what? I don't get the reference.
There is no reference. It's just, it was a nice thing. And It just seems like you're trying to find a negative in cupcakes.
I'm not trying to find a negative in shit. I don't like, all of a sudden they're bringing up cupcakes and they're, okay, Timothy, language. Yeah. Where's the soap? It's like, my God. It's like,
I'll just read your quotes because I can't find it. But one thing was they said there's no more excuses. And I do feel like the Devils have had too many excuses.
Yeah.
What's his name? David Blitzer, likes that Keefe is won at every level. That's fair. They did bring up his age and the fact that he has 200 wins. That's, I never really thought about that. That's something you can't take away from him.
Sure.
He feels like he has a vision to win the Stanley Cup. All right. I don't know if I've seen that. That's something where I guess time will tell. There was an interesting thing where, and you probably saw it online, that Treliving literally called him early on that the Devils wanted to talk to him right away while he's having lunch with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had this interest all along. So that's interesting. They say Fitzgerald says he checked all the boxes. From the get-go, it was obvious he was going to be a great partner. They could partner up. So, I mean, they all want to get to the cup and win the cup. I think, obviously Keefe is one of those guys that now has this burning thing. He wants to, he said, I got a job to do. I want their communication and feedback. I'm not holding up on my, so he wants people to be honest there, and he wants everybody to be accountable. And that's good, I think. But the expectations are really high now because even though he hasn't gotten far in the playoffs, you've brought in no matter what, he's a high profile coach.
Yes.
And that's something that has changed now with New Jersey because, with the Lindys, with the Travis Greens, he's a much more high profile guy than those guys.
Lindy is a pretty high
was. If you want to tell me he still is, I think that's the difference, of saying like, I don't know, Richard Dawson was high profile right up until the end of his career, which he wasn't, right?
Well, he was high profile when he's in The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Come on.
Yeah, that was a blip. That was after Family Feud. And how long did that last? That was a blip.
No, but
so I think he is a more high profile coach than what they've been getting.
I mean, it's tough to argue that. Although, like I said, I mean, I think he's high profile because he was and I know, everything's about the Leafs, like people say in the chat. He's a high profile coach because he came from Toronto. Now, has he accomplished much? No, but I don't think that was his fault. I think, again, the failings in Toronto have been, and I've said this for 5, 6, 7 years, are on the players, on the structure of the team, not on the coaching. I thought even though Babcock was a jerk, and Babcock, I think, was more responsible because he forced the general manager at times to go trade for players and give up prospects and draft picks for guys like Thomas Plekanec and Brian Boyle when the team wasn't ready to win. This team was ready to win under Sheldon Keefe, and they did go out and get players to help them win. And with the exception of the 1 year against Tampa, they fell short all the time. But I don't think that was on him. I think that was on the players, and we'll see how that pans out in Toronto. But the thing I wonder is, and I know this was brought up, and what I'm focused on when it comes to the Devils is the goaltending. If I'm Sheldon Keefe, I don't take that job unless I have an idea from Fitzgerald that we know what we're going to get.
I'm sure they said it. I'm sure they did. What's interesting to me is, you know how sometimes they say, well, after this guy, you need a good cop, or after this guy, you need a bad cop. Like, Keefe is talking about accountability and keeping the players accountable and everything, but he's kind of like the in-between cop.
Yeah.
He doesn't lean too much either way in direction-wise, in my mind. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, I'll use a historical reference here. And this might be over some people's heads. If Mike Babcock was Joseph Stalin, Sheldon Keefe was Khrushchev.
Okay.
He was not as authoritarian, but he was a tough coach. I mean, he held them accountable. Now, Stalin was a murdering piece of crap. I'm using, and Babcock we know the problems of Babcock in Toronto, and probably he should have been fired much earlier than what he was. And I don't want people to take any kind of wrong references here. I just use that as a historical reference. My point is that Khrushchev was a jerk and was a despot, but as compared to Stalin, he was a pussycat. And Keefe was a pussycat compared to Babcock, but he wasn't a pussycat. So I just think that, it could work out in New Jersey. There's a ton of talent. Somebody mentioned Dawson Mercer on top of Heischier, on top of Hughes, Pratt, and Meyer. They're loaded up front. They have a lot of youth and talent on the blue line. You've got Hamilton and Siegenthaler, and then Nemec and Hughes. He can, if he can bring those young players to heel and have a good structure that helps them, then I think that they can have some success. But I think it really comes back to the goaltending. If they need another goaltender on top of Jake Allen, and if they get that,
I think they'll get that. Who knows who it'll be, but Allen's pretty good. He's better than
Allen's a good 1B, but if he's your starter, if he's your 1A, then that's no. And they can't go if he's your 1A and you're going Nico Dawes or Akira Schmid.
I don't think that's their plan too. I don't.
Yeah, they're probably going to go after Markstrom.
Yeah.
And
who knows?
Now, Randy in the chat, and we'll take some questions in the chat, by the way. Randy in the chat said that there was a meeting between Markstrom and Conroy, and that they've buried the hatchet, so to speak. I don't know what that means in terms of. I mean, they've got 3 goaltenders. They can't send Dustin Wolf back down to the minors. So either you're going to carry 3, or you're going to trade Vladar.
I think Vladar will end up being a draft day trade if they decide that if Markstrom decides he wants to stay. I mean, if Markstrom wants to go, he's going to get traded whether they buried the hatchet or not.
Oh, this is a good question. I like this. Dan B. If Major League Baseball can incorporate Negro League stats, why can't the NHL include WHA stats? You know why?
My show about 6 months ago or a year ago. Remember when we had Kevin on? Yep. I said the NHL should do that.
Right? Will they do it? No, they'll never do it.
They hate that league.
They hate that league with a passion. It was competition. See, that's the thing. Major League Baseball did not consider the Negro Leagues competition.
Correct.
The WHA, it's like the NFL saying accept the USFL stats. Not going to happen. So
it'd be like Burger King and McDonald's working together.
Mass hysteria. Plus Burger King sucks.
Oh, whatever. Was that really the point of it? That's your takeaway?
No, but it's the truth. Okay, yeah, yes, Randy, we are taking questions. So let's see. There was one other thing I wanted to bring up. Oh, Burger King is awful. Exactly.
No,
it's terrible.
Anyhow, it's not terrible.
So over the last couple of days, I know that Ak wrote about the teams that need goaltenders and the teams that have extra goaltenders. Calgary is one of the ones we just mentioned. The problem is that there were maybe, I think he had 7 teams that were listed as teams that needed either a tandem starter or a number 1. And if you look at today's column, I think it was 8 or 9 teams that might be in the position of trading goaltenders. But some of the guys that they're trading have a lot of question marks to them. So it's like, okay, obviously Boston is going to be shopping Allmark. That's not a surprise. The reason they are
anybody interested in Allmark because he makes a lot.
I feel like for 1 year.
It's only 1 year?
Yeah.
Well, for 1 year, I think they'll have some interest. I thought it was a little bit more than that.
Nope. Yeah, 1 year. And, Swayman's an RFA with arb rights. So they could go to arbitration, but if they go to arbitration on a short-term deal, he could get $5-6 million. I mean,
he'll get 5.5 for sure.
Yeah. So
I think what's going to happen with Allmark, I bet you he goes to Utah.
It's possible. I mean, there are other teams out there that have cap space that are looking for goaltending.
But they have a lot of assets. They have to show people they're going to be competitive now. It's a different group, right? I think that would make a statement.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the teams that he mentioned on Monday as a possibility of looking for a goaltender because they had, I think, $43 million in cap space.
Yeah.
But okay, here I'll just go through the list here quickly. Is Florida going to trade Spencer Knight? Is there, I mean, he's making over $4 million. He played the entire season in the AHL. Now they buried I think next year he would have to clear waivers, so he's probably going to be the backup if they don't trade him. But then that's $14 million in cap space you're allocating toward your goaltending, and they did get good goaltending out of Anthony Stolarz. So would they, if they traded Knight, would that would open up $3 million in cap space? But Bobrovsky is 35. I mean, have they closed the door on Spencer Knight being their goalie of the future? That's a big question.
No, I don't believe they have.
Okay. Let's see here.
Everything I've heard.
Okay. Okay, Terry 3Gs. Marner moves before, at, or after the draft when the hammers fall on it. I'm sure. Oh, you mean when does the hammer fall? Terry, I don't know, because it's all up to him and his agent.
It doesn't feel like a draft day because it's too much to get done.
This is what a lot of people are saying, and it does make sense. Marner's got a heavily signing bonus laden contract.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like over. Let's see. I'll get the exact amount here, just for. Okay. Here we go. Mitchell Marner. Oh God, I hate these.
What are you going for?
No, I'm going to Cap Friendly, and Cap Friendly has got these ads that cover up like when you're trying to look at something and you have to X out of them. Okay, Marner has got his cap hit is 10.9. The salary is 8.025 million. It's base salary 775, signing bonus 7.25. That's payable on July 1st. That would mean that the Leafs would pay that, and if they traded him on July 2nd, then his cap hits 10.9, but the team that they'd be trading him to would only be on the hook for less than $1 million. Now, they could arrange a deal and say we're going to announce it on July 2nd, but it's already in place. It probably would get out, or it could be effective, like cuts in the NFL. The Bills cut Tre'Davious White, but the cut is not effective until June the 1st when they get cap.
Right. I don't know if you could do that with this. I don't know if you can, but if they're going to eat all of that money, then the return has to be great.
Yes.
So, like, just a bushel of draft picks isn't going to do it. They're not going to eat that money for that.
Unless they have a deal in place or something that they have in mind to, like, okay, if you're getting
pull off, like you're now maybe getting in Bruins territory where they had the 3 picks in a row and it didn't work out for them. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think they're making a trade for draft picks for Marner to use the draft picks. Okay. I think they're trading Marner in a deal, if it is for draft picks, to acquire draft picks, to use the draft picks and the cap space to acquire other players. Because they're a now team. They're not let's restock the shelves and like draft somebody who's going to be ready in 4 years. I think if they trade for a first and a second round pick, they're going to use those picks to acquire other players and the cap space that they open up with Marner. Now, if they take players back in a deal, like if they trade with Chicago and they get Seth Jones back, then that eats up most of the cap space that's freed up by Marner. So, but I think that it's a possibility that there could be a sign and trade. They extend them 8 years. The thing is that again, all that is contingent on him saying, I want to go. And it's up to him. The first move is up to him. It's like if Darren Ferris, his agent, goes to the Leafs and says, I want to talk extension, and the Leafs say, well, let's play out the year. They might say, sure, okay, and then he walks in free agency for nothing. The Leafs could say, well, we're not going to offer you an extension, but if there's a place that you would want to go, that you would want to sign an extension, then we might be able to make that deal possible. And if Darren Ferris tells him to go spit, then that's possible.
This is happening at the draft. It's too complicated.
I think it's happening early July.
Yeah.
But the only thing I'll say is I think we'll know if it's possible at the draft because you will see Brad Treliving talking with everybody. If it's possible, because he's going to want to lay the groundwork for a potential deal. Let's just say he'll know at the draft if Marner is willing and what teams he's willing to go to, because then he'll be negotiating with those teams when they're all in the same place at the same time. So I think we'll know. I think you'll hear, obviously, like Elliot and Pierre LeBrun and CJ and the insiders, they'll have some indication of it being possible, but it may not happen until after July 1st. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, so let's say it's with Nashville. Who are you looking for?
Well, okay. If it's Nashville, then one of the 2 goaltenders have to be involved.
Right.
Either Askarov or Saros, depending. And if it's Saros, you have to have Saros locked up on a long-term extension. Because you're not going to trade for him who's got 1 year left in his contract, and then he'll have him walk away.
Right. No, I think that's fair. So Saros, I would think Saros would be the key guy, and then
I don't think it would be Askarov because I don't know if you can put a young goaltender in the Toronto crucible, and like that's really risky. You don't know whether he can handle it.
True.
He's played in Nashville and he's played in Milwaukee. It's not like he's played for Russia in the World Juniors or, in high pressure situations, but we're talking about in Toronto and the regular season's high pressure, let alone the playoffs.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I would take, I'm looking over their prospects, defenseman Tanner Molendyk, who they took in the first round last year. I would take him. Mm-hmm. I would take Saros and whatever pick they give me. And that's my deal. I'll do that.
Okay. Going back to the goaltending for a second. Does Carolina trade Freddie Anderson? I mean, you've got Tkachuk. Anderson's on a deal with 1 year left. He did it again in terms of not coming up big in the playoffs. You give him a lot of credit for coming back from the blood disorder. But Freddie's Freddie. I just think you're only going to go so far with him. Is he good regular season goaltender? Is he an okay playoff goaltender? Sure. I don't think you can win a Stanley Cup with him. I don't know if you can win one with Tkachuk, but I think at a certain point you have to find out. And as long as Anderson's there, I don't think you will be able to find out. And with 1 year left in a contract, whoever the new GM is in Carolina, that's a piece that they can play, open up cap space that way, go out.
So it depends on who the GM is going to be. Like if you tell me it's Chuck Fletcher, I'm telling you he's not getting traded.
Right.
If you tell me it's somebody else a little more aggressive, then maybe he gets traded.
Yeah, I mean,
you can still check off and make Freddie the backup. He can't do anything about it.
Yeah, see, the funny thing is, I get the feeling that even if it is somebody like Fletcher, that the aggressiveness or lack of aggressiveness will not be on him; it'll be on Dundon. That Dundon is the guy who drives the bus, and they'll, if they hire somebody who's got connections, it's going to be okay. I'll talk to these teams about making these deals, and then it'll be up to Dundon whether you make the deal or not. And that's very Steinbrenner-esque. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, that's how it's going to probably be unless they bring somebody in before the draft. It could end up that way.
I get the feeling that that's the dynamic there. And if it is,
it is today because they don't have a middleman. I don't think Dundon wants to do that, though. I don't.
No, but don't you think that was the dynamic for all the time that Waddell was there? I do.
Some of it. There was some dynamic of that. But I do still think he wants to bounce it off of somebody and somebody who has experience. That's the key. That Dundon's not going to, he's not going to go with Tolsky from what I can gather. Yeah. So he's going to bring in somebody with experience, and then he likes overruling the guy with experience. So the guy who he's going to bring in has to be like, a guy who doesn't have a bad temper, has to be a guy who's willing to accept a lot less money. And someone to me, like that's Fletcher because he's looking to get back in the game. And he's made money. And so, to me, that's why it seems to line up for that. I don't know who else is out there. I don't think he's going to bring in a first-time GM. I don't think he's going to do that. And Brindamore wants no input. Kevin Allen's told us a million times in player personnel. So
somebody mentioned to me Ray Shero.
Yeah, I mean, Ray Shero's out there, but he doesn't have a temper. But would he go along with everything Dundon wants to? I don't think so.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. Okay. Columbus. They it might be time for Elvis to leave the building. The question is anybody willing to take a $5.4 million cap hit for 3 years?
Nope.
Now, they can retain something to make it more palatable. But would you, if you're a team that's desperate for goaltending and you think Merzlikins is good and you can get him for 3 years at $4 million, would you do it?
Nope. Nobody wants the 3-year term on him. He'll be the starting goaltender for Columbus Blue Jackets this year.
I don't know. It sounds like there's a possibility that
Like, who's taking him? Where's he going?
they'd have to retain, but I think there's enough teams out there that need goaltending.
Not for 3 years. They don't want that guy for 3 years, especially when his game is slipped. 3 years is like a death sentence. It is.
Wow. Minnesota, we talked.
I mean, think about it. The Leafs don't want him for 3 years, even at $4 million.
No, not at $4 million.
Goalie, right?
Right, but not a 3, not
if he had 1 year, great. Somebody would definitely take him.
Not at $4 million, but at maybe 3.5. At a certain, or Columbus takes something back in the deal.
Okay.
I mean,
let's go with public perception here because fans may not feel the same way you do about Merzlikins. They might like him, right? Don Waddell goes in there. The first thing he does is he retains salary and he dumps Merzlikins. How are the optics of that going to be? Not very good.
Why? He's been a failure the last couple of years.
It doesn't matter. He has to go in there and bring in somebody that will make a difference offensively to get fans excited, even though fans are going to show up anyhow, again, about that team. If he goes in there and his first move is a cost savings move, fans are going to be like, is that really the reason we're losing? It's not. They're not going to make the playoffs because they get rid of Elvis Merzlikins. There's nobody that can get from the outside that's probably even going to make them a playoff contender this year. So you could ride the year with Merzlikins because it's not going to matter.
No, but you can move Merzlikins out and use the cap space to trade for the guy that you're looking for or sign the guy that you're looking for.
I'll answer this one pretty easily, Zook. There's no way that Carolina would take Merzlikins. No way.
No. But maybe that's Utah. Maybe they don't mind the
Is
cap.
he much of an upgrade over Vedmelka? I mean, a little bit.
I think so.
Yeah, a little bit, but that's not enough for them to necessarily make the playoffs either.
But see, here's the thing. Okay, Minnesota with Gustafsson, we talked about that. They've got Wallstedt. They've got Fleury. Fleury came back. Wallstedt probably is the future number one. Gustafsson, I think, has 2 years left in his contract, but the amount is not really bad. He had an okay year last year, not great, but he had a great year the year before. So, Nashville, we already talked about. Now, Utah, they've got Connor Ingram and Velmelka. If you talk to people before last year, Velmelka, there were teams like, okay, that's a guy, if we get him out of Arizona, he might be a really good goaltender. We just gotta, I'd be willing to take a flyer on that guy. Now, after the year that he had last year and losing his job to Ingram, now people might be scared off. But a team that might be desperate for a goaltender might say, this is a guy, it's a 1 year commitment. This is a guy, it's $2.75 million. This is a guy I'd take a flyer on. Like, okay, Toronto gives up a draft pick for Velmelka. That might be the way some teams want to go or would go.
Yeah, I still don't think it's happening. I'm not feeling it.
Now, Anaheim, everybody brings up the John Gibson thing. It's a question of this is the thing. If Gibson doesn't want to go anywhere, he's not going anywhere. I don't think he has a full no move, but he's got a limited no trade, and clearly he wants to stay there. But they're not going to be competitive when he's still in his prime.
No, but he'll still be a good goalie.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's 30 going on 31 before the season starts. They're 2 years away from being good. They'll be better. They've got a lot of young talent, but they're not going to be good next year. It would be very surprising if they are. So, you've got Lucas Dostal, who played more than half the games, who's 23 years old, who played at the World Championships this year. I think it was for Czechia.
Yeah. He's not quite there. I don't know if he'll ever be there. He's good, but I don't know if he's great.
He may not be great, but he's young, and that's the thing. It's like, I think that's the most important thing here is that they played him a lot of games last year, and he's young, and he would be like among the same age group as that team when they're ready to mature and play in a playoff scenario, whereas Gibson's going to be 33, 34 years old. So now, again, it's up to him. If he doesn't want to go, he's not going to go. But
I think he'll be 33 when they're starting to get good, and I think they're all willing to go with that. That's my guess. That's my read.
now, Calgary, we said, Markstrom. Vancouver, will anybody approach them about Svilovs?
I don't think so because there is no reason for Vancouver to move him.
Well, no, he's not. Well, if they think they can get a lot for him, that's why. I mean,
I don't think they can get a lot, and he's under control. Like, I think the goaltending game at this point is, if you've got 3, you're probably holding on to all of them. If you've got 4, or you got 2 at the NHL level and 2 getting ready to come, then I think you could afford to trade one. But honestly, I don't think there's going to be a ton of goaltender movement.
That I think he's right, actually. Raisin is grape in French. FYI.
No, but it's like, so it's grape raisin. It's just grape in English.
Yeah, it's Canadian. It always has the dual pronunciation.
Well, that's interesting. See, I like that, Barticus. Thank you.
Yeah.
I fell for that.
Yes. Carter Hart's never playing in the NHL again.
2 years away. This trial's a year away. Like, forget about that.
Carter Hart is never playing in the NHL again. Even if he's found, it's Trevor Bauer 2.0. Even if he's found not guilty, do you think some team is gonna sign him?
No, I
don't know.
Yeah, I don't get the impression that that's going to happen. But I'm telling you, Anaheim's going to have another good draft this year, and I think they're going to end up getting a player that will play in the next 2. And I think that's why they're never getting rid of Gibson.
Yeah. Okay, so Dallas Edmonton game 4. I didn't hear the comments. Somebody was saying Darnell Nurse made some disparaging media comments. I didn't hear the comments. All I know is that if he did make those types of comments, that just shows that the pressure may be getting to Edmonton.
Yeah.
Now, this is the thing. Dallas is the better team. They are. They've got the better goaltending. They've got the better defense. Edmonton's got McDavid and Draisaitl. That is not the great equalizer, but it does cure a lot of ills. Hyman is a good forward. Nugent Hopkins is a good forward. They're deeper than they have been, but they're not as good as Dallas. Now, that does not mean that they can't beat Dallas, but that's the reality. And
the reality is Dallas is the better all-around team, but also the reality is if Edmonton could ever get up 3-0 on them, they'll win the game. Because, again, Ottinger hasn't been – you go look at his numbers against Edmonton. He gives up goals against Edmonton. Mm-hmm. He does. And so it's not like he's going to shut them out. And
they got up 2-0 on him, and then Dallas scored 3 goals in 3 minutes and 33 seconds because Edmonton's defense is piss poor.
Yeah, the defense. Well, I think it's because the defense did stand around a little bit, and Jason Robertson woke up. Like, he's all of a sudden decided to. But what if that's just like his signature game, and it goes back to the same series after that? I think would happen.
Possible. It's possible, but the thing is that it was the combination of not only Robertson but Rupe Hintz coming back, and he did not.
Made a difference. He did.
And I like I said to you, it's like clearly this upper body injury that he had is probably a shoulder injury, because the one thing I noticed about him is he didn't go into the corners. He can skate fine, he can pass fine, he can shoot fine, but it looked like he didn't want to risk going in the corners and getting hit, because if it was a separated shoulder or something of that nature, then he doesn't want to risk getting somebody like Corey Perry or Hyman or Vander Kane running into him and re-injuring it. So
here's the story, though, out of Edmonton. Darnell Nurse spoke for less than a minute today. McDavid said, hey, he gives us everything he's got, and he's always has for a long time. I think he's a prideful guy. Like, I've interviewed him enough times to know how prideful Nurse is. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is the the gut check game for Edmonton, and it wouldn't surprise me if they win it, because this is the one where maybe things click, because this is it. Like, their reputation gets smeared again if they, if they lose this series in 5 games. It wouldn't look good. So I think this is the one that sort of got their back end up now, and
they're gonna come out with their hair on fire.
Yeah,
and the thing is, in the first 10 minutes, if Dallas withstands that initial rush, then it'll settle in. Yeah, I mean, if Edmonton didn't show desperation, it would be a show of their character or lack thereof. I think they'll come out. Because they have to. If they don't, they're going to be down 3-1 going back to Dallas. Doesn't mean that they couldn't come back and win the series, but I just don't think they're as good as Dallas is. They've got Matt Duchene on their third line. That's how good that team is. So
I know. Listen, I get it, but again, until they really hold Edmonton scoreless, Edmonton's been doing some of the right things offensively, and so there could be one of these games where they win it 5-4 because their offense just is too much. Yeah. Right now Dallas is the better all around team, but Edmonton has enough that they could still make it scary, I believe.
Agreed. All right. We'll end it there. We'll be back on Friday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.